For months, this woman kept pulling into my driveway like she owned the place. I let it slide at first, but when it happened one too many times, I called a tow truck, twice. And that's when everything started to unravel, right in front of the whole neighborhood. My name's Ryan Mitchell, and I've got patience, I have to. I spend my days wrangling a bunch of 7th graders in a science classroom in Austin, Texas, trying to make chemistry interesting to kids who'd rather be glued to TikTok. I keep a routine. It keeps me sane. Home is my quiet place, a simple, one-story brick house with a clean yard, a small driveway just big enough for my sedan and maybe one guest spot. It's not fancy, but it's mine. My spot to kick back, grade papers, and watch the game without anyone bugging me. Then came my neighbor, Madison Clark. At first, it seemed harmless. The first time I saw her silver Lexus parked right in my driveway, I figured it was a mix-up. Maybe she had people over, cars needed shuffling, no big deal. I let it go. But then it happened again. And again. Madison always had some excuse, just running inside for a second, dropping something off. She'd flash this polite but smug smile and wave it off like I was overthinking it. I didn't like it, but I wasn't the kind of guy to pick a fight over nothing. Until one day. I came home after a long day, tired, hungry, ready to crash, and there it was. Her Lexus, dead center in my driveway. No sign of her. I took a breath, walked over, and knocked on her door. She opened it like she already knew why I was there, gave me this fake surprised look. "Ryan, what's the problem?" she asked, voice dripping with condescension. I nodded toward my driveway. "Your car's in my spot again." She blinked like it was news to her. "Oh, I just had a delivery, needed some space." "You don't mind, do you?" "I do, actually," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I need you to stop parking in my driveway." Madison gave this dramatic sigh. "Well, I live right next door. It's not like I'm some stranger." "You're still parking on my property," I replied. She scoffed. "Are you really that bothered by a car sitting there a few minutes?" "It's not a few minutes," I said, arms crossed. "It keeps happening, and I need it to stop." She laughed like it was nothing. "Fine, fine. I'll move it." And she did, that time. But it didn't end there. Over the next few weeks, I'd come home to find her car, or sometimes another one, parked right where it didn't belong. Notes I left disappeared. Knocks went unanswered. One night, after an exhausting day, I pulled up to find not just her Lexus but some shiny black BMW in my driveway. That was it. I parked on the street, grabbed my phone, and snapped a picture. Then I went over and knocked, harder this time. She finally answered, looking mildly annoyed. "Ryan," she said, dragging out my name like I was the one causing trouble. "Whose car is that?" I asked, pointing to the BMW. "Oh, just a friend's. We were having a little get-together. You weren't home, figured it wouldn't matter." "It does matter," I said, my patience gone. "This isn't a parking lot. This is my home." She folded her arms, tilted her head. "Well, you could have just said something earlier. I would have moved it." I clenched my jaw. "I'm saying something now. Move the car." She rolled her eyes but finally went inside to call her friend. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. By 20, I was done waiting. I went back inside, sat on my couch, and started looking up the number for the local towing company. That was the start of it. I'm not a guy who looks for drama, but Madison Clark had crossed a line. The next morning, I left for work early, but not before calling the HOA. I wasn't expecting much. HOAs usually side with whoever's got the most pull, and Madison. She practically ran the board. But I figured it was worth a shot. The response was exactly what I expected. "Sir, unless there's actual property damage, we don't get involved in neighbor disputes. Have you tried talking to her? The woman on the phone said, sounding bored. I just sighed. That's all I've been doing, I told the woman on the phone. She sighed like she'd heard it all before. Well, we can send a courtesy email, but that's about it. A courtesy email. Yeah, that'll scare her straight. But I didn't waste my breath arguing. I thanked her and hung up. If the HOA wasn't going to do anything, I'd handle it myself. That morning, before work, I left one last note on Madison's windshield. Big black letters, do not park here again. When I pulled up that evening, the note was gone. And there she was again, her silver Lexus sitting in my driveway, parked crooked like she couldn't care less. I just sat there for a second, staring. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I parked on the street, got out, and marched up to her door. Knocked hard. A full minute passed before she finally opened it, wine glass in hand, looking like I'd interrupted a spa night. Ryan, she said, dragging out my name. I need you to move your car, I said, keeping my voice level. She took a slow sip of wine, then said, oh, yeah, about that. I meant to text you, but I figured you wouldn't mind since you always park on the street anyway. My hands curled into fists at my sides. I do mind. This is my property, Madison. She laughed, like I was being ridiculous. Ryan, come on. You're really getting bent out of shape over a driveway. I stepped closer. No. I'm getting bent out of shape because I've told you over and over to stop, and you keep ignoring me. She rolled her eyes and swirled her wine. All right, fine. I'll move it. I turned to leave, trying to let it go, but then I heard her mutter something under her breath. Couldn't catch it all, but the tone said enough. I stopped. What did you just say? She gave me an innocent look. Nothing. No, you said something, I pressed. She smirked. I just don't get why some people are so uptight about the smallest things. There it was. That smug, entitled attitude that made my blood pressure spike. I didn't say another word. I just walked back to my house, pulled out my phone, and saved the number for the towing company. That night, while grading papers, I kept replaying it in my head, her tone, her arrogance, the way she acted like it was her right. She wasn't going to stop. And I was done playing nice. So the next time Madison parked in my driveway, I didn't knock. I didn't leave a note. I didn't call her. I called the tow truck. It was a Friday night. I'd just gotten home after a long week, and there it was again, that Lexus, sitting in my spot like it owned the place. Something in me clicked. I parked down the street, pulled out my phone, and called the towing company. I need this car gone, I told them. They showed up in less than 20 minutes. The driver hopped out, sized up the situation, and nodded. She's parked in your driveway? Yep, I said. Got proof of ownership? I handed over a copy of my property deed. I'd come ready. All right, he said. Let's hook her up. And just like that, the Lexus was lifted off the ground, wheels locked. I stood there with my arms crossed, watching with a quiet satisfaction as her car disappeared down the street. I didn't know what to expect, screaming, cops, feigned innocence. But I didn't have to wait long. About an hour later, just as I was settling in for the night, my front door rattled with 3 hard pounds. I didn't rush. I stood up, stretched, made her wait. Then I opened the door. There she was, Madison Clark, silk pajama pants, flip-flops, hair slightly mussed, phone in hand, and furious. Where is my car? She snapped. I tilted my head. Oh, you mean the one illegally parked in my driveway? Her nostrils flared. Don't play games with me, Ryan. Where is my car? I shrugged, calm as ever. Towed. She stared, mouth open like she couldn't believe it. You did what? You heard me, I said. You wouldn't stop parking in my driveway, so I had it removed. Simple as that, I said. Madison let out this sharp, almost hysterical laugh. Oh, you're going to regret this. Do you know who I am? I'm on the HOA board. I've got connections, Ryan. I just blinked at her, slow and steady. Good for you. Your car's at Sunshine Towing off Burnett Road. Have a nice night. And I shut the door. But Madison wasn't done. She stayed out there for a good 10 minutes, ranting and throwing out threats, her voice bouncing across the cul-de-sac. She even called the cops. When they finally showed up, they barely entertained her. One of the officers turned to me and asked, "You had her car towed from your own driveway?" "Yep," I said, handing over my property deed. He looked it over, nodded, and faced her. "Ma'am, he's within his rights. If you want your car back, you'll need to pay the impound fee." The way her face turned red. I wish I'd had a camera. But I knew this wasn't over. And I was right. I figured towing her car would finally get the message across. Nope. If anything, she turned it up a notch. It started small, little passive-aggressive jabs that were more annoying than threatening. First came the note on my door, written in bright red marker like she thought it was some legal document: "This is a community. We should all be more considerate of our neighbors." Straight to the trash. Then the HOA letters started showing up. One claimed my potted plants didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic. The same ferns that had been on my porch for 2 years were suddenly a problem. Another letter said my garbage bins were out too long. Another about faded paint on my mailbox. By the fourth one, I wasn't even mad. Honestly, I was impressed. She was committed. Then came the real escalation, calling security. One evening, I'm out front watering my lawn, minding my own business, when this white security SUV pulls up, lights flashing like I'd robbed a bank. A tall, middle-aged officer gets out, adjusting his belt like he's about to handle a major situation. "You live here, sir?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, confused. "Why?" "We got a call about some suspicious activity," he said, clearing his throat. I let out a slow breath. Suspicious. Right. I turned my head, and there she was, Madison Clark, standing on her porch with her arms crossed, pretending to be clueless. I looked back at the officer. "So, watering my lawn is suspicious now?" The guy looked uncomfortable. "Look, sir, Save it," I cut him off. "I already know who called. Tell her to find a new hobby." He sighed, nodded, and left. Madison? She just smiled like she'd won. I wasn't having it. I walked straight over to her porch. "Madison?" She blinked, fake sweet. "Oh hey, everything okay, Ryan? I saw security here. Hope nothing serious happened." I crossed my arms. "You know exactly why they were here." She gasped, all wide-eyed innocence. "Ryan, no need to be rude. I was just concerned. We have a duty to watch out for our neighborhood, right?" She wanted me to lose it. She wanted something she could use against me. So I did the one thing she didn't expect. I smiled. Calm. Controlled. Almost amused. "I'm done playing games, Madison. I gave you more chances than you deserved. You keep pushing, so let's see what happens when I push back." For the first time, she looked unsure. And she should have been. Because the next time she parked in my driveway, I wasn't just going to tow her car. I was going to make sure it hurt. Didn't have to wait long. A week later, Saturday afternoon, I came back from the gym, whistling, in a good mood. And there it was, her Lexus, dead center in my driveway. Again. Not just parked, blocking my garage. Bold. Disrespectful. And this time, my whole family was on their way over for a cookout. I sat there in my car for a second, just staring. Then I parked, stepped out, and made one call. "Hey, this is Ryan Mitchell. Need a car towed?" "Same spot as last time." The dispatcher laughed. "Same car too?" "You got it. We'll be there in 15. I smiled. This time, Madison was going to learn. I grabbed my folding chairs from the trunk, set one on my porch, and sat down with my arms crossed, waiting. Minutes later, the tow truck rolled up, fast, efficient, no hesitation. These guys meant business. The tow driver hopped out, tugging on his gloves like he'd done this 100 times. "We doing this again?" he asked. "Looks like it," I said, nodding toward Madison's Lexus. He shook his head, smirking. "Some people just don't learn." No hesitation. He started hooking her car up to the truck like clockwork. That's when Madison came charging out of her house, shrieking like I'd just broken into her living room. "Stop! What are you doing?" she yelled. I leaned back in my chair, sipping from my water bottle, calm as ever. The tow driver didn't even flinch. He was already strapping down the wheels. Madison marched straight up to me, eyes blazing. "You called the tow truck again?" "You parked in my driveway again," I said, one eyebrow raised. Her fists tightened. "I have people over. There's no street parking." "Not my problem," I said. She growled. "You're being petty, Ryan. I told you I would have moved it." I sighed, casual, like we'd been over this a dozen times. "Here's the thing, Madison. You've told me that before. And yet, here we are." Her face turned a shade of red that almost looked dangerous. "You don't understand what you're doing," she hissed. "I have connections. I can make things very difficult for you." I actually laughed. "Oh, Madison," I said, shaking my head. "I don't think you understand what's happening here." I pointed toward the tow truck. "Your car. It's already gone." She spun around just in time to see her Lexus rolling down the street behind the truck. She let out this high-pitched scream. "You're going to regret this." I stood up slowly, dusting off my jeans. "No, Madison. You are." And with that, I walked inside. My family was already pulling up, laughing and waving as they came in for the cookout. Madison just stood there on her porch, seething. But I knew she wasn't done. The second tow should have ended it. But Madison wasn't the type to take a loss quietly. She wanted revenge. And this time, she wanted an audience. By Monday, she'd flipped the script. At least, that's what she wanted people to believe. The HOA board, her buddies, sent out some community-wide email about neighborly disputes escalating unnecessarily. Carefully worded, passive-aggressive, vague, painting me like the problem. Then came the flyers. Yes, flyers. Printed, laminated, taped to every mailbox on the block. Is this the kind of community we want? Do we tow our neighbors instead of talking to them? I tore the one off my own mailbox and just laughed. She was really doing all this over a driveway. But here's the kicker, nobody was buying it. My phone lit up the next morning. Messages from neighbors, parents of my students, even HOA members who weren't in Madison's pocket. "Hey man, saw the flyer. What the hell is wrong with her? She tried to fine me $200 last year for a wind chime. If she parks in your driveway again, I'll split the tow fee with you." I couldn't help but chuckle. The best part? I didn't even have to defend myself. People had been watching her antics for years, the nitpicking, the fines, the power trips, and now she was embarrassing herself in front of everyone. Then came the HOA meeting. Normally I'd skip it, but this time I wanted a front row seat. I walked in, arms crossed, and sat right across from her. Madison refused to look at me. The meeting started with the usual stuff: budget talk, landscaping, trash bin reminders. Then one of the board members cleared his throat. "We need to address a complaint regarding misuse of private property." I leaned back, waiting. Madison straightened, ready to play the victim. But the board member kept going. "The complaint is against Madison Clark." I didn't even hide my grin. Her head snapped toward the table. "Excuse me." A couple of members shifted in their seats. A woman in her 60s sighed. "Madison, we've had multiple reports of you harassing residents and using HOA resources for personal grudges." Madison's jaw dropped. "That's ridiculous. I'm the one being harassed." The board member kept reading. "We've reviewed several complaints, including misuse of security calls, unauthorized HOA communications, and retaliatory actions against residents." Madison looked around the room, stunned. "You're taking his side?" The woman shook her head. "We're taking the side of the community." Madison opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She glanced around the room, looking for backup, but there wasn't any. She wasn't running the show anymore, and she knew it. I just sat there, watching it all unfold. For years, Madison had ruled this neighborhood like she owned it, twisting the HOA into her personal tool. But now, it was slipping away, and you could see the panic setting in. Her last mistake came 2 days later. I pulled into my driveway after work and noticed something off: my trash cans were gone. Not knocked over, not moved. Just gone. I scanned the street. And then I saw them. Behind Madison's house. Stacked neatly like trophies. I couldn't help it. I laughed out loud. This woman had gone from emails and flyers to security calls and HOA fines, and now, stealing trash cans. Pathetic. But I wasn't letting it slide. I pulled out my phone, took a few crystal clear photos, and walked right up to her front door. Knock. Knock. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. Finally, the door cracked open. Madison stood there, and for the first time, she didn't look smug. No fake smile, no attitude, just tired. I held up my phone. "You want to explain why my trash cans are sitting in your backyard?" She crossed her arms. "I don't know what you're talking about." I chuckled. "Madison. I've got pictures. Let's not do this." She just stared at me, silent. "You've lost," I said flatly. "You can't find me. You can't call security. The HOA isn't backing you. And now you're stealing trash cans like some kind of lunatic." Her eyes flashed, but she didn't say a word. I took a step closer, calm and steady. "You've spent months trying to make my life hell. But now, looks like you're the one who's miserable." She swallowed hard, lips pressed tight. Then, without a word, she shut the door. I smiled. Smartest thing she'd done all year. But I wasn't done. The next morning, I filed an official complaint with the HOA. This time, it was against her. I had the photos, plus years of neighbor complaints, harassment, bogus fines, security calls, unauthorized emails. And now, theft. By the end of the week, the board had no choice. Madison Clark was removed from the HOA. Her power gone. Her control over. And you know what? She never parked in my driveway again. Not once. She never even spoke to me again, no glares, no smirks, no petty little digs. She avoided me completely. And honestly, that was perfect. For the first time in months, I could pull into my driveway without stress. No cars blocking me, no angry notes, no surprise fines. Just quiet. But the neighborhood? Oh, they were still talking. Madison's fall became the stuff of local legend. The woman who once ran the HOA like a dictator finally got booted, they'd say. Neighbors who'd kept quiet started sharing stories. She fined me $75 for leaving my bike on the porch. She called security on my nephew for wearing a hoodie. I've lived here 10 years, she's never helped anyone. I realized something then. Madison had been a problem long before she came after me. I was just the first person to push back. And when I did, everyone else followed. A few months later, a "for sale" sign went up in her yard. Some said she was embarrassed. Others said she'd made too many enemies to stay. I didn't care why. The day the moving trucks pulled away, I stood on my porch, took a deep breath, and just let it sink in. The fight was over. And I'd won. The lesson? Some people think they can push everyone around forever. They think they can bully, manipulate, and never face consequences. But eventually, they pick the wrong person. And when that person stands up, the whole neighborhood watches them fall.